The human ambassador lounged in his chair. From his posture, any observer could have been forgiven for thinking that he was merely a member of the audience rather than the key figure of this tribunal, but the glares from the High Justices quickly dispelled any notion of that. The accused will be given time to speak. Use it wisely. Thanks, now shut up, the ambassador retorted, smiling at the flustered sputtering he triggered in the justices, before continuing without giving any of them a chance to interrupt. Code 56785, subsection 285, D10 of the Federation Tribunal Codex, more commonly referred to as the Hangman's Noose, the accused will be enabled and empowered to speak wholly uninterrupted during the time of their testimony, free from constraint of topic or order. Funny thing about that little addition to the legal code for those in attendance today who might not be aware. It was added once these esteemed shitlords realized that they had gained so much respect and authority within the Federation that no one would dare to abuse it like I'm currently doing. Because of this, they let it function as a way to have the accused waste time and weaken their own defense. He immediately turned his back on the bright red and fuming justices to face the audience, clearly having no intention or desire to direct any of his statements towards them. You see, without being kept on topic, they could very well stray from the arguments of the case and, after it's all said and done, find out that their half of the time was spent defending something that wasn't pertinent. Essentially, the joke is they were giving the accused rope to hang themselves with. Isn't that nice of them? I think so, because recently all I've seen them do is take from humanity, so to actually be given something for once just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Now, I don't plan on using my full time, so I don't mind straying a little bit, but since I have wandered my way back on topic, let's see why we're here today. Humanity stands accused of... I was going to do it properly, but I can't muster up a single fuck to give, so let me give you guys the sum up. We broke our contracts, all of them, at the same time. All of our workers walked off job sites across entire systems, and now we're in big trouble with these noble and powerful races who have run this federation with respect and decorum and blah blah blah. You get the idea. Long story short, we almost tanked their economies with our walkout. Your economies. We are the reason prices have shot through the roof for all of you, and you're probably really mad about it. But that's the thing, you're mad because these guys told you we did a bad thing. But did they tell you why we did it? It seems like a really big thing to just be the biggest ever dick move, right? Well, when we first entered the Federation and the workforce at large, we were untested. They didn't know how well we would fit in and where. So when my people went out to find employment, the pay wasn't great, but we understood. We were new, and needed to prove we could do as good a job as their other workers. So we signed contracts for lower wages, a full 3/4 less than the other races, mind you, but we had a clause included for future negotiations on pay, so we got to work. I absolutely mean to toot my own race's horn when I say we knocked that shit out of the park. Their production numbers, just from the sheer volume of new workers, went through the roof, and only got better as we got really fucking good at it. You name it, there was some human who fit right in the mold. Hard labour, creative thinking, engineering, we could do it all. So we waited a while until we thought we had paid our dues, and we used the clause to bring them back to the table to discuss a pay increase in our contracts. And wouldn't you know it, there was always some kind of problem. From scheduling conflicts to a sudden influx of complaints about human work ethic, there was something that made them say, now's not the right time. We got pretty annoyed at that, but we kept our heads down, didn't make a big fuss. Instead, we reached out through legal channels to find a way to move things forward. We filed suit after suit, going through all the right and proper channels to try and make them treat us fairly, but how foolish of us. We were using a system they had created, standing before judges they had appointed. So they stonewalled us, and no one said a damn thing. Not one of the Federation members stood up in our defense. Ambassadors who I had considered friends suddenly wouldn't take my calls, or would find excuses not to help. And nothing happened. No one cared. Not until we fought back. Because now all of a sudden here we are at a tribunal to seek justice. How fucking dare you? For the first time he turned his gaze back on the justices, to give them a scathing glare overflowing with hatred and venom. If looks could kill, the blast radius would have taken out the whole city block. You treat my people like garbage, pay them far less than they're worth, and have the gall to get pissy when we finally had enough? And let's not even mention your tokens of sincerity when we first joined the Federation. Those resource-rich planets you so graciously gave away, while bearing the details that the environments were inhospitable to most forms of life. Do you know how many of my people died because you hid that information? Of course you don't. Because you would have had to let their cases reach your fucking desks first. Thousands. Thousands of men and women who set foot on what they were told were challenging, but survivable worlds, lost their lives because of you. Thousands of families couldn't even bury the bodies of their loved ones because of you. But you fucked up. You didn't know about one of humanity's greatest qualities. Spite. We held our tongues and worked away in the background as we tried to handle things your way, the proper way. And we took every bit of pain you had forced on us, turned it into spite, and then used it to do what you thought couldn't be done. I'm proud to tell you, fat waste of space, that we now have mining colonies on every single inhospitable world you gave us, and even more proud to tell you to go fuck your contracts, your tribunal, and most importantly yourselves. You see, we ran the numbers, and with the resources from the planets you so graciously gifted us, our economy will be able to sustain itself for the next century, by which point I suspect we will no longer have a need to join your federation. I say join like humanity isn't already a member. Funny thing about that, we've only been a member of the Federation for 42 years, and a built-in clause in every new member's charter states that if they are unsatisfied and wish to return to a state of independence, they are empowered to do so, as long as 50 years have not yet passed. It seems like a nice little escape hatch if things don't work out. But who would ever leave the largest and most stable economy in the galaxy? Us, it turns out. After nearly crashing said economy. And so we did, about 2 hours ago. When the doors closed in this lovely chamber and proceedings began, we submitted all of the proper paperwork for the withdrawal of our species from this disgusting alliance. As of that moment, none of this trial meant anything, because I am not a representative of a Federation member, and neither myself nor my race are subject to the internal disparate systems of the Federation, one of which is, you guessed it, this fucking tribunal. Now I am going to walk out of this chamber, and if you try to stop me, the human race will take it as a declaration of war, and we will show you that the only thing you're better at than we are is dying. The silence was deafening. In the history of the Federation, since the first implementation of these tribunals, there had never been such a long, true silence. Never before had the entire Federation been threatened like this. Never before had a member chosen to leave. There were so many firsts achieved in the span of a single speech that it rendered both audience and justices completely unable to react. It was as if their minds had crashed and needed to reboot before they could even begin to address what had just happened. But by the time that they did, the human had already walked out. They didn't know exactly why at the time, but a deep unease began stirring in the heart of the Federation that day. An unease at the thought of a humanity no longer shackled by the codes and constraints of Federation law. A humanity they were not economically stable enough to wage a war against for the foreseeable future, because half of their workforce had just left. A humanity that harbored ill intent for every single member who had taken advantage of their friendship and understanding, or stood by in silence while it happened. They didn't yet understand how monstrous the foe they had provoked could be, but they would learn. Humanity would make sure of that.